Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, for anybody who will be joining late or anything like that, if you're not, if you're not here, we're going to be recording this, and it'll be available on our YouTube page after we do some editing. Okay, so my name is Jeff Kudashevich. I head up the Pub Ops team here at Freestar. We have folks out of our Los Angeles office, which is where I'm located, out of our headquarters in Phoenix, and then also out of our New York office. So I'm going to basically be going over the team that kind of supports our publishers, as well as some of the products that we're looking to unveil and make a bigger impact in Q2. As we're going, Paige on our team will be looking at the chat, so if there's any questions that come in, I'll try to field as many as possible as we go, and then we'll also have some time at the end for any Q&A as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, so that's me, and this is us. So I'm going to get going here. So you guys have certainly seen Publisher First as our kind of company hashtag. The hashtag for our team is "We Not Me." It's kind of corny, but I'm a fan of making sure that everybody's involved in all of the different aspects of what we do, and making sure that everybody on our team has each other's backs. So whether you're working with one analyst or one account manager, if they're getting bogged down, or if they don't have time at that moment to get to your request or get to an issue, somebody else is going to jump in. And we have a lot of tools that we use to make sure that everybody kind of knows what's going on with each other's sites and accounts. Okay, so to get started, we have two technical account managers. Cheryl, who's out of our New York office. She's actually happens to be here in LA this week. And then Brandon out of the LA office with me here. So some of the things that they do is, they're basically our client-facing team. Both of them have, many years of ad ops and publisher operations experience. So they kind of seen things from all of the different facets of the industry. They're, a lot of what they do is onboard new publishers, and they also, of course, investigate any issues or field questions for our existing publishers. So whether that's accounting question or ads.txt question or any other things in between, they're going to be your first line there, and they're as helpful as they can be, and as quick as they can be as well. And then last but not least, they also help with our client reviews. So for our new publishers, when you come on board, we have a few different reviews that we do: 2-day, 7-day, 14, and a 30-day. These are often to make sure everything's working as expected, making sure all of our demand partners are firing as expected. And then we also do some reviews throughout the year for existing publishers as well, just to make sure that the health of your account is there, and we're offering you the best products that we can. So I'm sure most everybody has dealt with Cheryl or Brandon at some point, probably myself as well. And they're both very skilled and very dedicated to making sure that they help with everything they can. Moving on, we have our analysts. So this is Mike and Paolo. So Mike is here out of our LA office with me, and then Paolo is out of New York. So these guys are doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. You probably will see them pop in on things like trafficking or QA, or making new ad units and those sorts of things. They spend their time pretty much in systems all day. So whether that's DFP, our dashboard, anything in between, Excel, Google Sheets, you name it. They're doing a lot of things to make sure that any yellow, red, green flags, so to speak, are being escalated to the account managers, and they kind of work hand in hand to make sure that we're providing the best revenue and product services that we can. They both work tirelessly to make sure that we get to all of the requests that we can throughout the day. And they're of course very pivotal to our day-to-day. Moving on. So Emily is out of our New York office. She basically manages revenue operations for Freestar. Some of the things that she does is she'll onboard new demand partners. So for instance, our video outstream product, Emily took from ground zero to where we are now with over a dozen different video demand partners. She's also onboarded several new header bidders that we're going to be unveiling in the next few weeks here. And she's also working on getting some unique setups with 100% fill networks, where basically we can bring up the bottom tier of impressions to set a hard floor with some of these demand partners that are willing to take our the less valuable, less cookied impressions and take those in mass. So those will certainly help with sites that whether you have a lot of cookieless users or just the bidding landscape isn't as competitive. Those sorts of actions will help in the long run kind of move that up. She also does a lot of evaluating for new ad products that we might be interested in, whether that's a third-party ad product vendor reaches out to us, which we get dozens a day. We need to evaluate those, make sure that there's value in those, and vet the companies and kind of make sure that whoever we do partner with is providing the best value to our publishers. And that kind of goes hand in hand with vendor management. So she kind of oversees those relationships, making sure that we're getting the best terms as possible so that we can then pass that on to our publishers through better CPMs, and as much as possible, making sure that we're staying in the forefront for anything that they're looking to unveil or any testing that they're looking to do. We want to be part of those conversations so that hopefully we get better rates and get in on the ground floor on a lot of things that are that really stem from those relationships. So a lot of the times things that we're able to unveil earlier are solely related to the relationship building that Emily does with these vendors. So certainly important for for your day-to-day success and for our long-term success as well. And then we have Andy out of our Phoenix office. Andy heads up ad technology and product. So he's effectively our stakeholder when dealing with the engineering and data teams, the things that our publishers need, the things that we need to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game with any industry updates or new technologies. Anything that we could help to improve ad performance, speed, latency, you name it. Andy's our go-to for that. So a lot of the things that we want to do, Andy's kind of behind making sure that we spec those out, scope them, get them into our sprint planning, and then of course ticket those as well, and kind of oversee the full product and project life cycle to make sure that when we are ready for something, he can then make sure that it gets done. And of course, I'm sure for many of our older publishers and probably some of the newer ones as well, you've probably seen Andy on some emails to help with any escalation points. So anything that's above a certain level of technical complexity, we go to Andy for those things. So he helps us ensure that we're able to tackle any issues, no matter how creative or interesting they get. And there's certainly no shortage in those, and we certainly appreciate the work he does there. Last but not least, this guy. So I just wanted to put out some general items that I might handle. So in general, I'm going to be overseeing the ad stack health. So I'm looking at things like where are we deficient in. Certainly internationally speaking, we're trying to make a bigger impact there. Which means working with Emily and our ad sales and demand team to see if we can set up more relationships in Asia, Europe, etc. to as much as possible move the needle, systems and process. So when I started at Freestar, we were not really using project management software effectively, and I'm certainly glad that was one of the first things I instituted, because we are now dealing with probably 5 to 6x the new publishers as compared to when I first started. So having good systems and process makes it possible to do that work, handle ad hoc requests, add new ad products, add new demand partners without really losing our minds, so to speak. And then also business operations. So I manage our CRM for our customers, and really anything anything in between, like something as silly as setting up phones, making sure that we're all the accounts are in order, and so forth and so on. And then certainly last but not least, managing and mentoring the pub ops team. You have a really skilled team here who is doing a ton of work behind the scenes, and I'm just making sure that anything that I can help make their jobs and lives easier, I do. Some days it's easier than others, and that's kind of what you expect. Okay, so that's effectively our publisher operations team in a nutshell. Now I'm going to be talking more about products and different sorts of initiatives. So starting with viewability. So viewability is one of the more important metrics that programmatic advertising keys off of. There's very little that very few conversations that you'll have with demand partners or ad executives where viewability isn't brought up. It's evolved from a buzzword to a necessity. So we're focusing pretty heavily on improving our overall viewability, so that effectively we can increase CPMs, and there's certainly a balance there between decreasing impressions and increasing viewability, because certainly if people aren't seeing your ad slots, viewability goes down. But if they're not seeing it but it's still loaded, impressions are going up. So there's a fine balance that we're working on through a few of these products listed here that I'll go over, but just generally speaking as well, different things that we're trying to do to improve viewability, holistically, and then on a site-by-site basis as well. So the first product many of you use, our dynamic ads product. It certainly could improve, and we're constantly looking at ways that it can be a better product for publishers. For those that aren't aware, it's effectively our way for content sites to auto-inject ads when we perceive them to be in view. So basically, as a user scrolling down a page, we'll look at things like the paragraph tags and so forth to then intelligently decide when to serve the next creative, thinking that it will be in view when we do that. Related to that, but different, is lazy loading. So dynamic ads focus a lot on adding inventory that wasn't already there, whereas lazy loading focuses more on utilizing the inventory that we already know is going to be there in a more intelligent way. So if it's a fixed placement in your sidebar, for instance, the idea there is as the user is getting closer to a fixed placement, then we'll show that creative when we think that it's going to be in view. So rather than adding new inventory, this is just a tweak on how we handle existing fixed placements. This is still being worked on. There's a lot of things that go into that, especially when you're dealing with multiple hundreds of sites. So it's going to be a little while till we're comfortable with where we're at, but we are making good inroads on that. Last but not least was our recent ad refresh update. So for those not aware, what we enabled was ad refresh to work if and only if the user is active within the viewport and the creative is viewable. So this action on its own had a tremendous improvement on our overall viewability. So we saw anywhere from 20 to 30 to even higher percent gains in viewability from individual sites, and overall we saw a pretty significant improvement from the whole of our publisher base. There's still work to be done there. There's obviously again a balance between overall impressions and viewability and how that relates to CPM and revenue, but it's something that we're very focused on improving and fine-tuning. Okay, this is a newer product that we're looking to launch. So this is the MultiFormat alpha that we're part of with AppNexus. It's basically a way to serve up more types of products within existing IAB slots. So this is not creating new inventory, but this is rather utilizing the existing inventory in a slightly more intelligent way. So this would be basically allowing for standard display as well as native ads as well as video to all compete and run through existing slots on your site. There's still some work to be done. The biggest hurdle we kind of got through already, which was upgrading to the latest version of Prebid, which was a necessity to enable this product. Once we kind of flesh out more of the work and get further along on it, we'll be talking to individual publishers to make sure that we can enable this on your sites. Of course, it requires different types of creatives in existing slots, so we wouldn't just do that on our own without your consent. But there's a lot of value here, improving CPMs, improving fill, and really having as many options as possible on your existing inventory. The reason I'm particularly a big fan of this is not only does it make it so that our existing inventory gets a little more robust and a little more competitive, but it also gives us the opportunity to, in the future, open up new inventory that maybe we didn't have before. So for instance, if you run a slideshow and you want to run ads between slides, this could be something where we can intelligently decide based on the auction what is going to win out between these different demand types, rather than having different products competing. They're all effectively running through the same pipes and just making it a really smooth product. Another idea that we've been thinking through is between page views. So rather than a traditional interstitial, something like a multi-format product where you have different types of creatives that can run through there, and as much as possible doing that with the user experience in mind. So we're all really jazzed about MultiFormat. It's certainly going to be, in my opinion, a big product going into Q2 and Q3. So we're definitely gearing up for it, and we're looking forward to seeing some good success with that product. Next up is our mobile optimized experience. So this is still a little ways out, but we certainly want to talk about it a little bit here, so that when we get closer to launch, it won't be the first time you guys have heard of it. So it's basically our take on fast loading, quick, low latency mobile pages. The idea here is that they will integrate perfectly with our Freestar ad stack. It'll be one layout that's been tested and works very smoothly. As we know, more and more people are moving towards mobile web for their browsing experience. This way, it kind of gives your users a light but still monetizable page that certainly will probably increase page views and things like that. But again, more to come as we get a little bit further along with this. Sorry. Okay. Our self-serving ad buying platform. This is another thing that's still a little ways out, but we're talking to publishers about it just to see what things are of interest in the marketplace and get feedback. But effectively, it's a way for advertisers to forecast, review, and pay for digital media all in one platform. So this will live on your site and integrate through our DFP. What that means is, if I'm an advertiser that goes to your site, whether it's let's call it an advertise with us, or advertise something like that page, they can effectively do their forecasting there. They can reserve inventory, and they can also pay for that media to be served on your site. Two things to note here is all of these creatives will still be reviewed by our team. And it will also be wrapped with compliance blocking code. So for those who aren't aware, Confine is a company that we work with to make sure that there's no malvertising, malware, in-banner video, etc., running through the exchanges that we work with for our advertising demand. So we would basically use their code to ensure that these self-serve creatives that are coming through are also protected from your site before they run there. This to me is a great ancillary benefit to whatever you might be doing from your own direct sales. So I definitely see these working in tandem, and it'll be up to the publishers to decide, is the self-serve platform something where smaller advertisers go to, and then larger advertisers, maybe your team, if you have one, or you yourself will manage. So you can certainly decide if you want to have some kind of tiered approach. I think that would probably make the most sense. Or if you feel like, hey, I just want everybody to run through self-serve, I don't need to be involved, that certainly makes sense as well. I think it really just depends on your business, how you want to run this sort of thing. So again, this is a little bit ways out, so we don't have a ton more detail than what we can say here, but we're certainly excited about having this product to offer, and I think it'll definitely help certainly with CPMs, but also being able to process more advertisers in a easier method. Okay, some of your very favorite topic, GDPR. There's still a lot of confusion, I think, in the industry, which definitely makes sense. It's something that has been in the making for a while. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically a new mandate from the European Union for the way you treat data from any users that are accessing your site from the European Union. So what that means is even if you're not located in the European Union, if you don't have any interest or business interest there, that doesn't matter. All that matters is, am I a citizen of the EU, and am I accessing your site from there? And if so, then you need to make sure that you're compliant in some way. So as we've mentioned in blog posts and different email threads, Zero ID is our preferred vendor. They will be able to both handle our GDPR compliant ad stack, so they're going to be running through our pipes similar to any of our other demand partners, so AppNexus, Rubicon, etc. Replace that name with Zero ID. That's effectively what they're going to be handling, and they're going to be handling that for EU users. And then they also have the kind of the full compliance piece, which is your way to have your business be fully compliant with the GDPR standards. So that means everything from analytics collection to marketing collection to advertising collection, performance collection, et cetera, et cetera. Basically any way that your website and anything you use on that website. So if you have a Facebook button or a Google Plus button, or you use a commenting platform, anything that has like a registration or is looking at IP addresses that you use, more than likely it's going to fall under the GDPR regulations. So Zero ID offers two kinds of solutions. Their ad stack is going to be baked in to what we do at Freestar, and then it's up to you if you also then want to use them for your full compliance. We've worked very closely with them to build out an integration and giving them direct feedback on how to make the product as good as possible. So they're again our preferred vendor. You certainly do have your options of who to use. If you're going to ask us for recommendation, it's going to be Zero ID. Okay, probably maybe a less favorite topic than GDPR is ads.txt. It's another one that's been becoming more and more important as the months have passed. We certainly heard about it last year, and it started building more momentum. At this point, we're at a stage where any new demand partners we bring on are requiring their information be included in the ads.txt file that lives on your site. So while it itself is just effectively a text file, it's a way to ensure that your inventory is being purchased by the vendors that we want to purchase, and vice versa. So as tedious as it might feel or sound, it really is important in the industry to make sure that, especially as we're adding new demand partners, we're as much as possible able to get your site approved and have their buyers buying on your site. We are working on automation for this. So when we send you out our file and say, hey, can you please update your file? It's important to not change the way the file looks. We're basically going to have an automation that looks at the file and the date and the structure. So down to, where do you put your own information? That's all going to be important so that this automation doesn't have a false positive where maybe your file is correct, but you decided to format it slightly differently, and then it doesn't know that, and it's going to send you an email saying, hey, we think your file is out of date. So basically the way that the ads.txt file looks now is at the very bottom of the file, it'll say, publisher, put your additional entries here. So if you work with any other vendors outside of Freestar for advertising demand, and they require an ads.txt entry, you would put their file at the very bottom of our file, or you would put their information at the very bottom of our file, so that when that automation goes through its process, it sees things set up the way that we have it set up, and you can still have your own information at the bottom there. We sent out, I think twice now, our publisher product survey. It's basically a laundry list of different products that we want to get feedback on. We don't want to run the sort of company that just makes decisions without listening to our clients. So, you know, if you want your voice heard, we are asking. So please fill it out if you haven't already. You'll see a link, you know, in the email invitation for this forum. We'll continue putting it out into our newsletters as we go. And it really is for us an important piece to make sure that the next products that we're working on are those sorts of products that our publishers really have an invested interest in, and there's buy-in there as well. So again, you know, it's a few minutes of your day, but it'll help that team that I went over earlier know, okay, these are the things that matter to our publishers. Let's go after them and let's get them in the queue as fast as possible. Okay, so that's kind of it for me as far as that goes. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of a Q&A, and I'll wait on Paige to let me know what's being asked. If we have any questions, maybe you guys are all dazzled and just floored and don't have any questions. So we'll see. Okay, so we have one from John. My question is about redirect ads. What's the status of eliminating these? Also, are we at a point where they might disappear completely, or just going to resurface in some ways going forward? So this is certainly something that we've seen come in waves. We work really closely with our ad blocking partner, Confiant. They're certainly becoming leaders in this space, so we're happy to be hitching our wagon to them. We have done things internally as well, outside of what they're doing. So behind the scenes, what we're doing is we collect data from Confiant at the bidder and environment level. So for instance, Rubicon on desktop, and we bucket the bad ads in CPM ranges. So if Rubicon is sending us bids from a penny to 9-10 cents, those will be bucketed in the 0 to 10 cent bucket. And if we see they are over-indexing for malicious ads in that bucket for a 7-day average, we're going to block Rubicon on desktop in that bid range from being able to bid. It's to me, you know, a no-brainer for us that we want to, you know, push on this sort of product improvement. We're also working closely with Confiant to be able to not only block a malicious ad, but then try to get the next one bid on. So effectively, if you think of it as a stack of bids, you know, number one was the highest CPM. If it got blocked, we want to then serve number two. It will still go through the same checks and balances, but the hope is, you know, if we lost the first bid because it was a malicious domain, we'll then get the second bid. As far as the second part of that question, will they resurface? You know, the way to think about it is, you know, this is the livelihood for a lot of these guys. So you run a fair, honest business. You know, you work hard, you do these things. In some ways, they think of themselves as doing something like that as well. Probably not the honest part, but they certainly see it as their own work. So I think, you know, the industry will continue to evolve. Browsers will continue to make gains in what they allow and what they don't allow. You know, ad servers, you know, DFP and so forth, they will continue to make gains. We will continue to make gains. I truthfully, I don't see a world where they will just be completely eradicated, because the other side is working very hard as well to get through all the checks and balances that our side of the business is putting into place. But I do think it'll continue to be a smaller part of what you see on your site. So the next question is from Stephen. My site had an issue serving dynamic ads. Right now we're using static ads. Is there a timeline when this will be addressed? Yeah, so we are working on improving our dynamic ads product, from the ground up. We brought on a couple newer engineering hires in Q1 that came from demand and supply backgrounds. So a lot of the work that they've done in their career has basically made them experts in these sorts of fields. So in addition to improving the way our technology works, they're also going to be working on improving our ad products. Dynamic ads certainly on the list. I don't exactly have a timeline at the moment, but it is something that is top of mind for us. My hope is as we add new products, we can at the same time improve existing products that certainly need it. A lot of the products that we have available to us now certainly need a version 2 and a version 3, and we're cognizant of that. A lot of it has to do with being able to prioritize things. So again, it's kind of that balance of do we want to figure out new and innovative products, as well as maintaining and improving our existing products. Okay, Aaron from Golf WRX said, are there plans to build out the SelfServe platform discussed for a publisher DFP implementation? That I'm not sure of. At this point, that wouldn't be on the roadmap. So I think I'll have to take that question and try to work on an answer for you as a follow-up. Just at this time, I don't think that we've thought as far out as that would be. That'd certainly be like a version 2, version 3 of that product. Okay, so Dan said the CPMs day over day for 2017 versus 2018 in April are on average 9 cents lower. Is there any reasoning for this or plans to improve such issues? Honestly, a lot of it has to do with the market dynamics. It certainly is good to compare year over year, but this April is certainly considerably different than last April, and next April will be different than this April. I think part of what we're trying to do through revenue operations is try to, as much as possible, stymie any of these valleys that we might see approaching. So part of that is working with some vendors who will help fill in gaps where maybe we don't have enough cookied information from users, and fill in those gaps with CPMs rather than going to lower bidder CPM. So a lot of what we're doing is trying to basically rise the tide as much as possible. Okay, I'll wait to see if we have any other questions. Okay, it looks like that's it for now. Definitely appreciate everybody's time. We certainly love working with our publishers, and my team is here for you whenever you need us, myself included, of course. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question here, if something comes up, feel free to reach out to us over email or Slack, and we can kind of take it from there. So again, thank you everybody for joining. Please remember to fill out the product survey. We're going to be sharing the video on our YouTube channel once we do a little bit of processing, and we will have a May event similar to this one with one of our other department heads. So please try to join for that one. And again, thanks everybody for your time. Bye.